Number 12, Michigan 2024 football preview on Good Morning College Football. Hello and welcome to episode 62 of Good Morning College Football. I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFB Winning Edge and CampusToCanton.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are, of course, going to be discussing the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines, coming off a magical season, 15-0 run to the championship title. Winning performance was very, very impressive, of course, getting past Washington somewhat easily. And we're, of course, going to be discussing whether or not Michigan has what it takes to make another run at a Big Ten title, maybe a trip back to the playoff. Expectations on the whole are relatively modest, especially compared to most defending national champions. And of course, being number 12 in our preseason power rankings means that our team strength ratings don't necessarily expect Michigan to make a real run at back-to-back national titles. But as we'll discuss, certainly I think that this Wolverine squad has playoff potential. And there are, obviously, as we always talk about when trying to diagnose what our power ratings are saying. And please do keep in mind that if this is your first time joining us, our CFB Winning Edge team strength power ratings have absolutely nothing to do with my personal opinion on how a team will stack up. And this is just a starting point in our preseason ratings. These will continue to be updated as other information comes out. We do projected depth charts that change based on what we're hearing coming out of fall camp. But then also throughout the course of the season, one of the real pieces that we think is a strength of the way that we project these teams, because we do individual player ratings based on raw talent ratings coming out of high school from the traditional recruiting sites. We adjust those based on experience and career production. And this Michigan team, as we'll discuss when we get to our returning production numbers, is quite inexperienced, just hasn't had a lot of production, especially at some key positions. So once we see it, on the field, things may change. This Michigan team absolutely could quickly improve its standing in our power ratings and could, I think, quickly prove to be maybe a tier or two higher up than how we currently, see this team. But before we dig in, let's, of course, say our thank yous to those of you who are tuning in live. Thank you very much to those of you who are checking a replay on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. We very much would appreciate you liking this video there. Whether or not you think our rating is fair or accurate, we definitely do appreciate the like on the video. We, of course, would hope that you would be willing to subscribe to the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. But then, obviously, of course, if you'd be willing to subscribe to CampusToCanton.com, which we think is the best value fantasy football membership available on the internet. There are monthly rates starting at $2.99 per month. We've got a wide range of tiers that go all the way up to our C2C Winning Edge and all 22 tier packages, which include a lot of the things that I will be using in today's preview, our returning production database, our team profiles, chief among them. Our 2024 player and team stat projections will be available in July. But then all of our members get access to VIP Discord chat, our rankings on the site for college fantasy football, Devy, and the Campus to Canton version of the game, where you have a college team and an NFL team that work with one another, and then premium tools. The team at C2C is continuously working on new tools and updating those, rolling them out. There's a draft tool and team management rostership tool available now that is potentially game changing. I mean, I've used it. I've seen it be used in leagues, in supplemental drafts that I've participated in the last week or so, and it's absolutely just changing things, making it a lot easier to quickly identify who's the best player currently available in your draft, whether it's supplemental, freshman draft, but then also gives you tons of analysis on the site. We have written content, rankings, ADP, all kinds of great stuff. So please do check it out if you haven't already. You can sign up for as little as $2.99 per month at campustocanton.com. All right. So you might have seen over the last 24 hours or so the biggest sort of, especially at least in the college football world, the thing that we've been talking most about the last 24 hours are these offensive and defensive power rankings from EA Sports College Football 25, and Michigan, not getting a lot of love there. I looking at the offensive power rankings right now, do not see the Wolverines listed in the top 25. On the defensive side of the ball, number 7. So certainly some respect for the Wolverines defensively and the ability for new head coach Jerome Moore to rebuild that unit. But Moore, of course, has background on the offensive side of the ball as an offensive line coach. Michigan has a lot of work to do in that unit in particular as far as rebuilding goes. But as a play caller, also, of course, got a little bit of head coaching experience as well when Jim Harbaugh was suspended at times. So Jerome Moore has his hands full, as we'll discuss, as far as the amount of just overall talent and production that is no longer in Ann Arbor, with 13 NFL draft picks in the most recent NFL draft, including, of course, first rounder quarterback JJ McCarthy. There's reason to expect that this team will take a little bit of a step back. But what are others saying at this point in the offseason, the preseason? According to DraftKings, the regular season win total for the Wolverines right now is 9. So a 9-3 Michigan season in 2024. Certainly a far cry from going 15-0 once everything played out last year, but that still is, I think, very much in the mix for a playoff spot. And I'm trying to train myself on thinking through, how things are different now as far as making it into the playoff, and a 9-3 Michigan team, especially one that's got a strength of schedule ranking right now of number 3 in our CFB Winning Edge strength of schedule number. So that would be an impressive feat for this new look Michigan team. How do they stack up as far as national title expectations? They are currently 10th in the DraftKings futures odds for winning the College Football National Championship, tied with Notre Dame at 25-1 as of this morning. They're 4th in the Big Ten conference championship futures odds, 6-1, 4th in the league behind Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State in that order. And then will they make the playoff or not? If you were to look at the odds this morning, it was plus 105 for the Wolverines to make it into the CFP again. So just right there at 50%, maybe a tick below, 50% that they are going to be able to make it. What are the other rankings out there? As I said at the top of our show, if this is your first time with us, these are not opinion-based ratings that we use at CFB Winning Edge, but some of the ones that we refer to in these team previews are. So we take a little bit of a range. Some are more computer-based ratings like ours, purely what do the numbers say. Others are a little bit more human focused. How do we expect these teams to finish? And both the computers and the analysts, the human analysts, are somewhat split on Michigan. We've got SP Plus, ESPN, and Bill Connolly, who of course have basically been the gold standard on the computer side of things for quite some time, has Michigan number 6 in its current preseason rankings. Andy Staples of On3 also has the Wolverines number 6 in his expected, more predicted, how is this team going to finish type rankings. Kelly Ford, the K Ford ratings have the Wolverines number 7. Athlon Sports and the Sporting News, the magazine side of things, both have Michigan at number 8. Phil Steele's preseason predictions, his top 25, top 40, is got Michigan as a top 10 team, has the Wolverines number 9, as does Stuart Mandel of The Athletic and his post-spring rankings there. ESPN's Mark Schleybaugh, his power rankings are available with Michigan number 10. And then 2 more computer-based systems have the Wolverines on the outside of that top 10 looking in. Michigan is number 11 in the beta rank projections for 2024. And then Phil Steele's Power Poll has Michigan at number 12. So more of a talent-based, how would this team stack up against one another on a neutral field. So there's a range there, not a wide range. Most, see a step back for Michigan, which was clearly the best team in college football last season. They finished number 1 in our CFP Winning Edge team performance ratings, obviously, won it all and deserved to do it, played like a true national champion on the field. But how these different people and projection systems sort of expect this team to look and compete moving forward based on how what's gone, who left the roster, who's coming back, who are they able to bring in. There's a little bit of a range there. Is this team actually legitimately in the top tier of college football as far as 2024 expectations? No, but they are very much in the mix, especially if you think that they're a top 6, top 7 type team. But everybody, just about every system, thinks that this Michigan team certainly is, has playoff potential, being a top 10 or top 12 type team. That's certainly in the realm of possibility. So what are individuals and those close to the program saying about Michigan? First, Andy Staples, who I mentioned, is on the high side as far as expectations for the Wolverines this year. Back in May on his show, the Andy Staples show on 3, in a conversation with Jesse Simonton, he gave a little bit of context for why he's got Michigan at number 6. Quoting here from the show, says they lost a lot, but I don't think they drop off all that much. I think that they have the best 2 defensive tackles in the country in Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. They have maybe the best cornerback in the country in Will Johnson. Sharon Moore being elevated to head coach means all the development you've been doing on your offensive line continues. Continuing here, I'm really not worried about them at all in the trenches. I'm not worried about them at all on defense. It's just a matter of what does the offense look like, we assume, with Alec Orji running it. Back in April, Clayton Safey of the Wolverine, also an On3 site, offered a post-spring depth chart projection. In it, he listed Orji as a co-number 1 with an or between the name. Actually listed Jack Tuttle first. It wasn't an alphabetical order, so maybe there was a reason there. But Alex Orji has not officially, been named the starter. There's plenty of discussion and analysis as to whether or not he actually will end up as that week 1 starter, or if he'll be able to keep that job full time if he is. As Safey explained, Tuttle was injured all of spring, reading here from the piece, but will factor into the quarterback battle that will go into summer and fall camp. The distance between Tuttle and Orji and Jalen Warren, who is number 3 on that list, doesn't seem all that significant, according again to Safey, if it's even there. Warren was impressive in the spring game, throwing the only 2 touchdown passes and totaling a game-high 136 yards through the air. So maybe not just a 2-player battle ongoing, but could get even more complicated if Warren continues to perform well in the opportunities he's given in practice. In May, Austin Meek of The Athletic offered some observations of the Wolverines in their post-spring transfer window. Also reading here from the piece, I thought it started with I don't know, the intro definitely caught my eye. It said, moves made during the spring transfer window often come with a hint of desperation. If you remember, toward the end of that spring window in late May, there was sort of, what was it, a 2-day period where there were 4, I think, defensive backs who ended up committing to Michigan. As Meek says here, players in the transfer portal in May are running out of time to land with a new program. Teams shopping in the portal are running out of time to fill their needs. For Michigan secondary, the spring portal window brought not just 1 or 2 additions, but 4 safeties: Wesley Walker of Tennessee and Jaden Mangum of Michigan State, and cornerbacks Amir Hall of UAlbany at the FCS level and Ricky Johnson from UNLV. So that piece goes on to take a look at some film of those players and sort of as Meek says, though most teams or most moves we sort of view with an eye toward maybe skepticism or desperation, or you didn't get the best of the best by kind of having to wait until the spring to add to this. But Meek is a little more positive, says no, these weren't desperation moves. This was just adding some experience. Certainly, I mean, Walker's been a starter in the SEC at Tennessee. The cornerback, Amir Hall, is certainly an all-conference, maybe all-American caliber player at the FCS level. Ricky Johnson's got a lot of experience as well. So these are players who, even though Michigan is going to be without one of its expected starters in the secondary and Rod Moore, as we said, Johnson, all-American. Staples called him maybe the best in college football at his position. Also, Makari Page experienced on the back end as well. Michigan needed depth, certainly. Has to rebuild and replace some key pieces, but this wasn't just we'll take anybody we can get. It was more of a there's an opportunity to add some talented, experienced players to the mix, and of course we'll see how it shakes out as we look at our depth chart projections and all of that here in just a bit. But first, let's take a look at how last season played out. This will be quick. You remember it, I'm sure. Michigan was the last team standing. Going to our CFB Winning Edge 2024 team profiles here, zooming in on those schedule results. There are a lot of 100s, 100% in that post-game win expectancy number. We're referencing College Football Data's post-game win expectancy number, advanced box scores. So if a team was to replay, or 2 teams, I should say, were to replay that game 100 times, 1,000 times, however many, and the results were the same in the box score, how many times or what percentage would you expect Michigan to come out on top? And the first half of the season, 100% across the board, just a dominant start to the season for the Wolverines, and Michigan was able to carry it through to the end. 99% against Purdue, 94% against Penn State. Very impressive there. That Maryland game, a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit more, a little closer to a coin flip, but the Wolverines survive 31-24 against the Terps, and then take care of business against Ohio State, even though it ended up as a one-possession final score. Michigan deserved to win that game 9 out of 10 times, statistically speaking. Similar number. I mean, that 87% against Iowa seems low with Iowa. You can't win if you don't score, right? And Michigan absolutely dominant defensively against the Hawkeyes. It was really on the field, it could have gone either way. Anytime you go to overtime, basically, in my view, 50-50 shot of winning a game. But again, according to those advanced box scores against Alabama in the semifinal, Michigan very, very deserving of that OT victory, 92%. And then the national championship game, the biggest stage in the sport, 34-13 was the final, 99% in the post-game win expectancy. Just a very, very impressive season from beginning to end for the Wolverines. And it paid off, right? But as we turn our attention to 2024, looking back as well, as I said, the overall team performance rating, #1 in the country, according to our numbers last year. So Michigan, even though this does not include playoff or conference title game numbers, we only look at FBS opponents in the regular season only. It does skew things a little bit here toward the top, the teams that play meaningful postseason games. Nevertheless, Michigan was the best team in college football according to our numbers. Number 12 on the offensive side of the ball, top 10 passing, very efficient with J.J. McCarthy running things there. And then the #1 defense in college football, #1 in team performance defensively, #6 against the pass, #1 against the run. And that run defense, again, should be a strength, as Staples outlined, maybe the best interior defensive line duo in the country coming back this year. But as we look to our returning production numbers, which you can see here as well on the screen, triple digits overall in returning production. Because of that, Michigan, which did finish last season #1 in overall roster strength, as you would expect for a team that produced 13 NFL draft picks, including a first-round quarterback, those numbers have fallen significantly. Michigan right now overall in roster strength, which is based on those individual player ratings. Think of them, we call them video game ratings. They were based on those EA Sports ratings. They may not exactly line up with the game when it comes out next month, but same idea, right? Ours do go past 99 into the 100s if a player really truly produces at the a very high level and keeps adding to their overall rating. But Michigan, compared to others in college football, especially on the offensive side of the ball, taking a little bit of a step back. 36th in roster strength when you take those talent ratings, adjust for experience and production. But good news is Michigan's going to be able to, and these players individually, going to be able to continue to add to their player ratings based on how productive they are on the field throughout the course of the season. But still a top 10 defense, as we'll discuss a little bit later. All right, so let's shift gears just a little bit, talk about returning production. And this is our CFB Winning Edge returning production database, which is, again, available to our members at the C2C Winning Edge and all 22 tiers at campuscanton.com. Michigan's 113th in the country, 17th out of the 18 Big Ten conference teams. If we were just to look at raw numbers, so here is our, just based on who's coming back and who's not from last season, Michigan would rank 115th overall in returning production, 122nd on the offensive side of the ball, 83rd on defense. Those numbers get, they change just a little bit if we do, take into account incoming transfers across the country. That's where that 113th adjusted returning production ranking goes overall, 128th offensively, 79th on defense. Looking at the quarterback position, of course, it's going to be the biggest storyline. It's going to be the biggest, question mark for this Michigan team. If the Wolverines are able to replace J.J. McCarthy, they're going to be a very, very dangerous and team worthy of contending not only for a playoff spot, but as I said, I'm trying to sort of reevaluate how I think of national championship contenders, because I used to really rely on, all right, these are what the preseason ratings say, and yeah, they'll change a little bit, but probably not that much. And as long as you sort of survive your regular season, as long as I guess you're not Florida State, survive, go undefeated, get that top 4 spot. At that point, there's very few. There's really not much access there at the top, and you're going to have an opportunity to play for a national championship. Now, for the expansion from 4 to 12, I'm struggling a little bit, quite honestly, to remind myself, okay, you don't have to be one of the elite teams at the beginning of the season. If you suffer an early loss, Michigan plays Texas early on, as of course we'll we'll discuss. Michigan might still be figuring out its quarterback situation over the first couple of weeks of the season. We saw it with Alabama last year. They were able to survive enough, with Jalen Milroe getting benched and coming back and slowly making their way into that top four. Michigan has even more time and more room for error to stumble a little bit early if they have to figure some things out. But by the end of the year, if things really start to gel on the offensive line, at the quarterback position, in the secondary, then Michigan's going to have a chance to, prove that it can, be one of those teams that gets hot at the right time and maybe make a run at the end. We'll see. Not sure. Again, returning production. McCarthy's numbers solid, not spectacular, but obviously, was worthy of national championship quarterback. Was a great fit for the offense, the team. His leadership is always mentioned. I was reading some interviews with Alex Orji recently, and yeah, a lot of kind words for JJ McCarthy and the work he did on and off the field there at Michigan. Still averaged 9.0 yards per attempt, which is really in a strong position there. 22-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Didn't necessarily just dink and dunk down the field. 9.4 for average depth of target is solid. Not most teams that we think of as really attacking downfield. You like to see sort of double digits there, but still, it's not like people often reference one of the other NFL first round draft picks. Bo Nix has been somebody who just threw a bunch of screens and those all added up. McCarthy not exactly in that same vein there, but who is behind him, right? Jack Tuttle got the most passing opportunities last year. Really, numbers wise, excelled. 15 of 17, 130 yards, touchdown, 0 interceptions. Jaden Denegal, who was fourth on that list from safety at the Wolverine at the quarterback position, got maybe the second most passing opportunities. Davis Warren got a few more, didn't necessarily capitalize. 0 for 5 with an interception, but has been playing better lately in practice. But Alex Orji is, in my opinion, the player to beat there. His ceiling is just so much higher. Jim Harbaugh at the Rose Bowl, right, was the semifinal where they played Alabama, compared Orji to Jalen Milroe, who, of course, let's remember, the top vote getter among returning players in college football as far as the Heisman Trophy goes. And I think actually Milroe was comparing to Orji. So a lot of excitement about his ability. He was on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list last year. Didn't get a ton of opportunities, but ran the football a bit. 86 yards and a touchdown on the ground in 15 attempts. Also got some snaps in some very important games against Ohio State, against Alabama there at the end of the season. Of course, Blake Corum and his 27 touchdowns will be missed, but Donovan Edwards, big plays and big games for Edwards. Excited to see what he can do as the clear number one running back. And hopefully we'll see, a little bit more consistency from him throughout the course of the regular season, and think that will play off. Think that Donovan Edwards is in line for a really excellent year. Khalil Mullings able to, a lot of the spring discussions, even though Edwards is expected to be that number one running back and top ball carrier and really maybe top offensive weapon for Michigan this season, saw some other, discussion. Hey, it's maybe not a, number one Edward, number two Mullings. It could be considered a little 1A, 1B. Certainly different styles. Mullings has had opportunities as a short yardage goal line back in the past, coming off 222 yards and a touchdown last season. But Edwards, I'm very excited for. Mullings add some depth there. Of course, Benjamin Hall, Tavir Dunlap, Cole Cabana, all those guys. Running back should be in a pretty good spot depth-wise. The wide receivers, maybe a little less so. Your top returning wide receiver in terms of targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns is Samaj Morgan, which you could see there last season finished 6th in receiving yards on this team. Top wideout Roman Wilson is gone. Number 2, Cornelius Johnson is gone. And the leading pass catcher, leading target, Colson Lubson, another personal favorite of mine. I think that he has huge potential, can be incredibly productive, even more so than last year when he had nearly 650 yards and 4 touchdowns from the tight end position. Just a very athletic tight end, really a big wide receiver in a lot of ways, but somebody who can be a real force in this offense. But Edwards, certainly as a receiver out of the backfield, can do some great things, climbing up the leaderboard in a lot of categories as a receiving running back in Michigan school history. But will Morgan, will Tyler Morris, will Frederick Moore, Peyton O'Leary, how will these guys who are expected to either step into that number 1 receiver role or starting receiver role, or maybe have the chance to compete, who's going to step up and become that wide receiver capable of getting into the end zone, like Roman Wilson proved last season when he went for 12 scores. On the offensive line, it's basically starting over as far as starting experience goes compared to last year. All 5 players who had double-digit starts for Michigan last season are gone. Trent Jones, who started 5 games, he is also graduated or out of eligibility there. They do bring in Josh, is it Preeb or Preeby? My apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name, but he is a full-time starter, Big Ten experience coming in from Northwestern. And then Miles Hinton has been a starter in the past, had 5 starts last season as well. This is a unit that, again, like Andy Staples says, are you really worried about Michigan on the line of scrimmage in the trenches? Maybe not. There, I think, is a track record of success. They've recruited well. They've developed. Sharon Moore, with his background as an offensive line coach. Most teams, this would really, really concern me. But Michigan, I think, earns a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. And by time the games, they hit their toughest Big Ten matchups, I think that unit is going to be still maybe one of the best in the conference, and who knows, maybe the potential is there to repeat as one of the best in the country. Top 2 tacklers are gone, Junior Colson, Michael Barrett, and then this is where things get a little bit interesting to me. You can see that light blue color are incoming transfers. So Michigan, a little more active on the defensive side of the ball as far as trying to fill some of those holes from players moving on to the NFL, running out of eligibility, but certainly still some key pieces missing. The loss of Chris Jenkins, even though Michigan has a great foundation on the defensive line, that's going to be a big miss. 20 pressures from last year. Jalen Harrell on coming off the edge, 31 pressures led the team. 28 pressures for Brandon McGregor. Still think, of course, Josiah Stewart's back. He had 29 pressures. Mason Graham from the interior, 29 pressures. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback. Derek Moore, another guy with 20 plus. But they're still, not as deep and will miss the production and the disruption that some of those players, had for this national championship squad last season. What does it look like in 2024? Let's head back to the team profiles. As we said, Michigan number 12 in our preseason power ratings. We are on the lower end. We're not the absolute lowest, but a big reason why is because we have a system in place and we trust the process. Alex Orji was not, a 5-star recruit, was not a high 4-star recruit. Jack Tuttle actually came in with a better recruiting profile. Also has had a little bit more starting experience. Also hasn't, really been able to produce worthy of adding points to his individual player ratings through that on-field production. But Alex Orji, perhaps a little underrated right now. He's below an 80 in our video game ratings, our individual player ratings. If he blossoms into one of the top playmakers at the quarterback position in college football. If we see in week 1 against Fresno State, week 3 against Arkansas State, hey, maybe even against Texas, if he's one of the most athletic players in college football, like Bruce Feldman laid out last year, if he's as good as Jalen Milroe, which it seemed like Jim Harbaugh was making that comparison last year. I forget the exact quote. We've mentioned it on Good Morning College Football before, but then hey, maybe he racks up the numbers early on, and by the end of the season, Alex Orji might be, low to mid 90s in those individual player ratings. That happens. You can get double-digit production points the way that we mix those in through things like 100-yard rushing performances, going over certain thresholds as a passer, whether it's 10 or 12 yards per pass attempt in a game, or 300 yards, something like that, or yards per pass attempt for the double digits there. You can, we do add production points based on things like that. So Orji certainly, if he wins the job, is capable. If Tuttle wins the job, Michigan would get a little bit of a bump because he's an 86 right now, just based on that, recruiting profile coming out of high school. It's not a perfect system. It's the way we've done it. We have a pretty good track record as far as being able to project these roster strength ratings and build them into our team strength ratings, and use those to project win totals and point spreads and all that good stuff. I feel pretty good about our track record, but sometimes, when you dig really, really deep into it, there's the potential perhaps for players to be a little bit underrated, and that end up affecting the team as well. Donovan Edwards looks like one of the best running backs in college football. There's certainly times in his career where he did, but a 99 plus rated player there. The wide receiver position is similar to our Orji rating, where there's just not a lot of experience, not a lot of production available yet. Certainly potential. We'll see what will happen, but it's not quite there yet. All Big Ten tight end. Colson Loveland, a little bit more on the high side, knocking the door of a 90 individual player rating there. And the offensive line, Michigan has recruited quite well. So even though these players aren't super experienced as far as last year, Miles Hinton does have 20 career starts under his belt. Josh Preby has 28. Giovanni El-Hadi expected to start, sort of has one of those spots locked down. It sounded like coming out of spring. He has a little bit of starting experience in his past, so probably maybe not quite as good as they've been the last couple of years, at least in week 1, but still a very, very solid offensive line, and probably a real strength for this unit. Defensively, a lot more gold. Those either first team or second team all conference performers, but Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, very, very solid on the interior. Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, both edge defenders, have been productive pass rushers in the past. Excited to see how that unit all comes together. Jason Barham, one of the top linebacker transfers in the country, didn't put up huge numbers last year, but very experienced. And Will Johnson, All-American, over a 100, like Stewart, like Graham, because Stewart put up a lot of production at Coastal Carolina before transferring into Michigan and continuing his good work. But 3 100 plus rated players are excellent to build around. You see a few others in the 90s. The depth is not quite what it was last year. A lot of players have some experience, but basically, single digits across the board in the second tier, front 7. Nobody played more than 10% of snaps last season. But that additional depth in the secondary, they did bring in a ton of starting experience and production among that group. So that unit in particular, as we discussed this spring, and the newcomers should help. How will it play out week by week? Michigan, as we said, top 3 in strength of schedule. That is going to be very difficult. playing Texas, who is a legitimate national championship contender, one of our top 4 rated teams in the preseason. We have the Longhorns as a favorite in that game, even though it is at the Big House. Think that Michigan will be able to, get by bowl teams Fresno State and Arkansas State without much issue. Both are 3 or 4 touchdown projected spreads according to our numbers. USC, that's going to be a challenge. That top 25 USC defense according to EA Sports, right? But that Trojans squad, somewhat similar to Michigan, and if they figure out the quarterback position, they're going to be competitive. They're going to be a tough team to beat. There's a lot of talent coming back. Minnesota is a team that I think we are a little bit higher on than odds makers in the market, perhaps, but still see Michigan as a clear 2-touchdown favorite there. The national championship title game against Washington is a long road trip, and the first road trip for Michigan comes basically mid-season, but Washington is even farther down the returning production rankings than the Wolverines. So I think that Michigan, as of right now, is certainly the team to beat in that matchup. Things get kind of sneaky tough in the middle of the season. Illinois has been rebuilding. Michigan State, I think, is going to be far more competitive this year on a week-to-week standpoint than they were last season. Oregon, number 3 in our preseason power rankings. You can refer back to our Oregon preview a couple of weeks ago. And then Indiana is a really difficult team to project, but Kirk Cignetti has revamped that roster, has a track record of great success at James Madison and earlier in his career as well. And I think especially by the end of the season, that Indiana squad is going to be tough. Northwestern, I'm not as high. I think last season was, they far exceeded expectations, but as of right now, Northwestern I think is our lowest rated Big Ten team, maybe second lowest rated, and expect that Michigan's going to be able to handle that quite well. But Ohio State, if you missed it, if it's your first time joining in, Ohio State is our number 1 team in our Team Street power rankings, and that defense especially in our roster strength ratings is just off the chart. So right now there's a gap between Michigan and Ohio State. We have the Buckeyes as one of the best teams we've seen since starting CFP Winning Edge in 2018. But a lot can change between now and then. And if, Orji or Tuttle, whoever ends up being Michigan quarterback, if Donovan Edwards really does capitalize on his big play potential as, the go-to guy, if the wide receiver room and Colson Loveland and that group really come together and perhaps overachieve based on current expectations, based on those recruiting ratings coming out of high school. Once we truly get those players experience and see how productive they can be, that offensive line, is again just one of the best in college football because they just churn out, are incredibly well coached, develop those players, and they're pretty talented players on the whole to start with. And if that defense continues to play, maybe not only like a top 10 team as far as, or top 10 unit as far as roster strength goes, but closer to what they were last year, the number 1 defense as far as team performance goes. As I said, kind of jokingly about the Big Ten championship game last season, Iowa, you can't win if you don't score. Well, if Minnesota doesn't score, Illinois doesn't score, Oregon, it's going to be tough to keep them in check. But all those teams, if Michigan really is able to lean on its elite defense as that offense, improves a little bit week by week over the course of the season, even if they come up short against Texas or Oregon or Ohio State, 9-3, if they do win the games that we have them favored to win, probably gets Michigan in the playoff, I would think. And then by that time, they could certainly be a very, very dangerous matchup for just about anybody in college football. If you get a slot, get one of those 12 bids, anything can happen, I think, especially maybe in year 1. If you look at our projected win total and our official projections, we've done this for every FBS team since 2021. So over the last 3 years, Our win-loss record's pretty good. I feel comfortable with it. We're at 60.4%. We were 55.6% last season. Certainly some room for improvement, so I wanted to make a little bit of an adjustment to it, but officially we are under for Michigan. These will change, obviously, again, as this team adds production, adds experience. Don't be surprised if these numbers get better for Michigan throughout the course of the season. But as of right now, officially we're under. We're taking a little bit of a different look at these win total projections this year, tracking how well we can do as far as giving a bonus for every game in which a team is favored, giving a penalty for every game in which a team is an underdog. In that case, Michigan is favored in 9, an underdog in 3. That's a +6. We give 10% of a win additionally for each of those. So you could add 0.6 wins, so that's 8.62 based on adding up all those projected win percentages. Still under for Michigan, but 8.62 rounds up to 9. I think that's the most likely outcome for Michigan, for me personally, finally putting my opinion into it as far as these numbers go. But 9-3 seems about right. Is 10-2 possible? Absolutely. Is even better possible? Yeah, perhaps. I mean, we absolutely could be underrating this Michigan squad. There's a track record here of Michigan not only finding players who are a bit underrated as far as their recruiting ratings go, but developing those players, making them finding players that the NFL is a lot more excited about potentially than the recruiting ratings, the freaks list for Bruce Feldman. Michigan's had its fair share, certainly, of those players, and some of them are still on the roster, obviously. So there's every possibility that our numbers currently are underrating Michigan. And as I said, this team has the potential to improve over the course of the year and be a real factor at the end of the season. So that will do it for us. Today, we will be back on Monday with the number 13 team in our team strength power rankings from CFB Winning Edge, the Miami Hurricanes. Miami and Michigan are basically tied there at number 12. I was doing some changing of the wide receiver depth chart because CJ Charleston wasn't listed as maybe a projected starter in that on 3 depth chart that I was referencing earlier, and moving him out and moving Kendrick Bell in actually flipped Miami and Michigan. So instead of having to push this Michigan preview back to next week, decided, all right, for now, I want to make sure they stay at number 12 for the show. But basically, our numbers see Michigan and Miami exactly the same as far as their preseason power ratings go. So again, teams that have the potential to get in the playoff and a lot of talent, however they improve over the course of the year. We'll see what happens. I think both have very high ceilings. But if you haven't already, please do like this video on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to that channel. Not only are we, there on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with Good Morning College Football, but there are tons of great shows coming out just about every single day from the C2C family. And then, of course, if you want access, especially if you're a fantasy football-minded person or want to get into college fantasy football, please do check out campustocanton.com. You can join for as little as $2.99 per month, get access to a ton of great written content, tools, analysis, ADP, player ratings, all kinds of great stuff. But then if you want access to these team sheets, not just Michigan, but all 134 teams, returning production, team profiles, projected point spreads, win totals, all kinds of stuff. You see, I kind of skipped it today, but we've got, the raw talent ratings for broken out by position, 247 Sports, Rivals, On 3, see how well teams recruit and then how well those units grade out based on position strength when we adjust for experience and production. As you can see here, Michigan, top 20 talent on both sides of the ball, even if it's a little inexperienced at the moment. But We'll be back with more on Monday. Again, I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFB Winning Edge and campus2canton.com. Have a great weekend, and we will see you for our next episode of Good Morning College Football. Take care.